Hi everyone, how we doing? Welcome to Many Super Civic Conversations. This is the second conversation of the day, and I am here with Jess. We are going to be discussing CCSF student activism, which is very interesting, and I am so excited to get into that. But first, you guys, I know many of you guys are here. Probably it's not the first time, but a couple times. But in the Q&A portion, you're going to find a link in which you can donate to Manny's to help us continue our mission of civic engagement. We would really appreciate your support at this time. Manny's is closed at the moment, so we have no source of income or making profit. So this is our way of making sure that we continue our mission and that we keep folks informed. Jess, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me and other CCSS students
Yeah.
have the opportunity to, talk about ourselves and what we've been doing, but also like outreach to the San Francisco community to get help and get uplifted.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think this is a very interesting topic. I was doing some readings right now about the history of student activism. I go to SFSU,
Oh,
and
awesome.
just like and many of other folks know, SFSU has also been a hotspot of student activism. During the 60s, they led the anti-war movement, the civil rights movement, and the free speech movement. But that's not specific just to SFSU. It is very specific to other institutions in San
Mm-hmm.
Francisco. And CCSF is one of them. And I wanted to give a little background about you. You co-founded CCSF Collective and CCSF Student Says. Can you explain a little bit about that to let our viewers know what those coalitions are?
Yeah, sure. CCSF Collective is an awesome art community, or it brings people together from different departments, students, staff, alumni, teachers, admin, anyone who's like very interested in, creating positive change, and art is the way to connect them together. And it's a great online community on Instagram and Twitter. They have they're connecting people even though we're not physically together. There's a virtual feminist art show that's coming up, and we're looking for submissions. And it's a great way to highlight the different departments and special programs that we have at City College, and also uplift our artists and artivists, in our community. And we've been using, art as a way to get attention politically, but also to change people's minds and get visibility on the issues that matter to us. And CCSF Student Says is an online account that basically helps inform our fellow students and our community members about issues that are very important to students currently. We've experienced so many class cuts, and we wanted to make sure that we could highlight the classes that were being endangered of getting cut, promote these classes so then people can get enrollment, but also tell students about how they can be civically engaged. Because we had an ordinance that came to the SF Board of Supervisors in February, trying to restate some of the classes that were cut, and having a digital platform to connect people, even though we physically all can't be together on the same campus, and we have such different student body. Like, our daytime students are so different from our nighttime students, and we have students that are older that want to make sure that their older adult art classes are being protected. And how do we create places where people can have conversations and also figure out how they can take action together? So we started doing digital campaigns with other student groups and community supporters in order to help progress our shared goals of restoring our college.
Definitely. Well, I really like what you mentioned about artivists, and you and I were discussing this in our pre-call about
Yeah.
the class cuts, that just happened at CCSF, and most of these cuts were on arts program and physical education, as you mentioned, and you know, a lot of my friends attend CCSF because it provides them the opportunity to attend college without having to pay tuition. Um, and we discuss how, for a lot of folks, this is an essential part of being in community, and folks depend on this. And now that CCSF suffered these cuts, I very much love the work that you're doing to make sure that we continue to bring this back. And as you were mentioning with CCSF Collective and CCSF Student Says, this sounds like an incredible opportunity. What are the steps that you guys are taking now that we are resorting to have to do everything via Zoom and pretty much over video chat?
Yeah, it's been a challenge for some students because not all classes can easily be transferred to modified online learning. And um, some students unfortunately had to drop out due to the stresses because we're all experiencing this shared trauma. But then we have students reaching out and said, oh, I'm so grateful to have taken an art class at CCSF because I've waited my entire life to learn how to draw. And those people, artists like Johnny Green from CCSF Portfolio Club, are leading online gel pen demos to help uplift our community and share what is so magical about being able to take an art class, being able to experience humanity. And when we think about, being quarantined, sheltered alone, how can we, not enjoy music and, poetry and photography? And students are creating hashtags to unite us together. So there's been a photo project through CCSF Photo, and basically people are sharing their photos with in quarantine, and it basically highlights the need for community and how much arts is joining everyone together. With the class cuts, we hope to reinstate some of the art classes that were cut. For myself, I was in metal arts, and that program was completely gutted. 48 Hills did a video piece on us, and we noticed, like, because of these amazing art classes, students are able to have skills to produce, art or products or design things and be able to sell it for, supplemental income. And especially in times like these, they're so grateful to be able to, lean into those skills and be able to help each other uplift themselves in this economic downturn. But art is so important, and it heals everyone. It gives you a reason to go through difficult conversations. Like, we have students that are also hosting a virtual online art gallery. It's called Believe Us Too, and it's basically using art in order um, to better. Sorry, I'm not explaining this part. But domestic violence is a very, very hard topic to talk about, but using art as a way to connect people and see other people's narratives, and also have the opportunity for artists to go through that experience to have their own story, and share it out with the rest of the world, is amazing. And I love that CCSF students are stepping up, because there's so many people that end up taking classes at City College in San Francisco that you have no idea. And if you take one class, you're considered a student, you're considered a RAM. And once a RAM is always a RAM.
I love that. And yeah, you're very right. I think the arts are they're in a very important outlet. And also considering that San Francisco is a very politically charged city. I mean, you see it in the art that's all over the city, like the Missions murals. It is very, there's a political message behind
Yes.
it. And, I feel like that is what makes San Francisco so beautiful, that, the residents and people who take part in these communities, they are very expressive in the way that they like to surround themselves and express themselves with art. So I very much agree. And gutting these arts program is definitely gutting a very vital part of the city of San Francisco.
Yeah, because
Uh,
art is also a form of communication.
yeah,
And some of our students are working with the Black Panther Party to help uplift the history of arts and social justice and social movements. And
yeah,
we've used arts in order to create like campaigns and gotten people more involved. And sometimes the activity of doing art helps people communicate why that class was so important to them, you know. And sometimes it's very hard to, you know, keep on your studies and without any type of, you know, community bonding or expression, it's really hard to continue.
definitely. But you know what? As you're explaining to me these cuts, it just begs the question: did CCSF tell you guys why they were cutting, these classes? Was there did they redirect the funds towards other programs? Where was there's just not enough money to fund these arts programs, or what's happening? What reasons did the institution give you to explain why they were cutting this?
When the class cuts happened at the various semesters, because I've been at CCSF since 2018, and I'm only, you know, able to go to school again because of Free City. And basically, when all these classes cuts were happening, the school wasn't like preemptively telling us like, oh, it's because of this or this, expect this many cuts to these programs. But the state changed its funding formula in the way that it helps fund community colleges like City College of San Francisco. And our school has been chronically underfunded. And now our school is faced with issues where they cannot actually fiscally, you know, keep their ship afloat. And now students are getting involved and community members are getting involved and SF supervisors are getting involved and proposing longer term funding in order to reinstate some of these, you know, higher education classes that benefit our community, like the arts, the humanities, ESL classes, vocational trade classes. And you know, the legislation is currently being written, and so we're working with, you know, Gordon Marr's office and the AFT Teachers Union and other community stakeholders in order to figure out how to protect these classes for it to come back in the future. But it's definitely a civics lesson because, you know, when I went to school, I wasn't expecting to get this involved, and I know other students weren't expecting to go to board of trustees meetings and protest, go to city hall every day to, you know, talk to their supervisors about how they can get funding, you know, because we realize like when we're in this process, once your class gets cut, you're at a disadvantage and you see so many other students that are just one class shy of graduating, and they would have been the very first in their family to graduate. But with these class cuts, you know, when it affects you, you're like, oh, why did that happen? What is chronically underfunded? How is the school spending money? How come we don't have a financial analyst or budget, you know, controller when we're in a financial deficit? And why do we need a forensic audit, and why is it so important for us to understand the finances of our school as students and community members? Because if the school is below a 5% reserve, the school is in danger of getting shut down. And now, like, more people are trying to understand what information the Board of Trustees have in order to make these decisions, because some people are worried that, you know, the properties are going to be used to pay off, to get some of that money back. And people don't want the school to be shrunk, you know, in this time, and classes that are getting cut. it's a more reason for all of us to get involved and ask for funding from our elected officials. Ask, the senator, the congresswoman, the assembly member, the supervisors. If the state funding formula has changed, who else is going to step up and invest in our citizens and the future of our residents? Because I benefited from Free City, and I know even in just one semester, it has given me so much that I want to repay back. And I know other student activists and organizers are feeling the same way. And we just want to make sure that these educational opportunities are open for everyone in the future, because Free City allows all our neighbors to access quality education for the first time. And if something is suffering like a gem like City College, how can we reinvest or protect, this vulnerable institution that serves so many?
Definitely, and I think that is very it's very important, to be honest. For folks watching, I just want to remind you guys that in 5 minutes we're going to start taking Q&A questions. So if you guys come up with any questions, feel free to submit them in the Q&A portion, which is just right below. Jess and I will be answering them.
Yay!
My last question before all this, you just mentioned about about rising up, and how can a regular San Franciscan that doesn't attend CCSF, and how can somebody in another school institution like myself, like what if an SFSU student wants to help? What can we do to stand in solidarity with folks that are being affected by the class cuts at CCSF?
I love this question. Thank you so much. Because we're currently looking for a lot of collaborators. And we're trying to do many projects in order to uplift our entire community, because a lot of students never know when they're going to come into City College to take classes. We have a lot of SFSU students that do take their prerequisites at City College, or people go and change careers or get lifelong learning benefits from it. One of the great ways to get involved is to get informed. And we have a great student newspaper called The Guardsman, and you can read all their issues online at theguardsman.com, and you can read previous issues, and they cover everything about, the finances, the class cuts after different semesters, the lack of governance, how students are feeling very disenfranchised in the process of improving the school, so you can get a better idea about what's happening. But also, there's opportunities to get involved with the CCSF Collective. You can follow on Instagram and Twitter, and CCSF Student Says. We're working with outside community organizations right now, like SF Food Friends, and we're helping to combine resources in order to help our community at large, because everything is interconnected. All our residents, all our students, some may be experiencing food insecurity or housing insecurity, and public education is one of the ways where they feel like they can get the resources they need. I think what's important is that there's a lot of decisions to be made in the future. In the fall, San Franciscans have the opportunity to vote for new board of trustees, which is a huge deal. And we want to make sure these candidates for trustees are pro public education, and also want to help the school restore some of its, essential services that they have provided. And people can get involved by, if anyone knows anyone who is very, politically minded and want to get involved or help create policy, they can get involved now to work with the teachers and staff and, community members who are already interested to help with, the Community Higher Education Fund legislation coming up, or help recruit candidates for board of trustees. Because in order for us to do well, we all have to engage and participate and find those that will be able to lead us and work together to build, a better relationship for our school and for our students. Because we've had like a little, some tension in the past. And this is why student activists and organizers, rise up, because they want the other other narratives and other points of views to be heard and valued, and representation matters. And even if you're a student at City College and you're registered in 1 or 2 classes, you're able to run for something like student trustee or student council positions. And it does not matter if you're 18 or 80. If you apply for these positions and run and serve, your voice can be counted and heard. And we would love to have a diverse representation of students, students that are housing unstable, that can advocate for students, students that know of other students that need certain resources. We want them to be heard and not be an afterthought, because if we have more people at the table, the better solutions that we have for everybody. Because I enjoy it when students are active in multiple areas. Like, we have students that are public health advocates, and during the COVID-19 crisis that we're facing, some students have been stepping up to organize info talks with UCSF healthcare professionals, because they are minded, oriented in those areas, but they're looking specifically out for our community, for our students that may not know these resources, so they create other opportunities for our students to be heard and helped. And I'm so thankful for students making a change. It's another another student organization that has been getting grocery gift cards for our food unstable students, because our school institutionally has not been quick at helping students. And we look at SFUSD, the high school district, and SFSU, and they've reacted so quickly to this crisis that they started doing food banks, you know what I mean? Or food centers and pickups, and offering laptop pickups. And our school's a little bit slower. We're currently, trying to get the laptop program out, but, we need students to stand up, and community members, if they have resources, to donate their time or their expertise or, some money, in order for us to get uplifted.
Definitely. And we have a little comment in our Q&A portion.
Okay.
It's from anonymous attendee, so that's a little bit unfortunate, but they say, "Hi Jess, I'm a CCSF student that simply wanted to thank you for all the tireless hours you commit both online and in person in fighting for CCSF in our community. You're the best."
Oh, that's so sweet.
Of course, and yeah, I would like to reiterate the same. I am, as a student myself, I also look up to other students that partake in the fight, because I think it's very important. If we don't stand up for ourselves now, when will we?
Yeah.
Um,
And there's so many other student organizers behind the scenes that, are writing op-eds, that are going to these like really long bureaucratic meetings, that are following up with administrators, that are getting so much work done. So I'm not the only one, but I want to make sure that all those people out there watching that are doing it, I'm like, thank you so much for being involved, because this literally is a movement. We've all, like, individually probably protested the class cuts, all of last year. But together, when we mobilize and organize and be strategic about, how we're asking for help and how we're communicating our needs, that's when we get a difference made. And it's inspiring a younger generation to get civically involved, because it's like, oh wow, every single action matters. Every single phone call to your supervisor, every single email that you write to your mayor about this issue, it matters, because no one can ignore tweets. No one can ignore the masses of young people or older people that are asking for their classes back, and we show up to City Hall with our artistic posters with, one student has an awesome, like a art demonstration where each book is representing a class that was cut from the arts alone. And there was over 200 books that was painted with the names of the classes, and just having it in front of City Hall just the people walking by were like, wow, what is that? What does each book mean? Oh my gosh, all those classes got cut. And this is how art can make a huge difference.
Wow. That's wonderful. And you were also talking right now about how you guys were recruiting candidates for the Board of Trustees. Let's say that like I was interested in running for the Board of Trustees. How do I begin this process? And, if I am someone that really cares about public institutions and public education in San Francisco, and I want to make sure that, I do my part to make sure that I rise up and that I contribute in fighting for public education. How do I go about this? Who do I go to? How do I start the process? And what does that entail for me to run for the Board of Trustees?
So you'll have to go to SF elections in order to, pull the paperwork in order to apply to run. One of the most important things is in the past, maybe some of our Board of Trustees candidate never spoke directly to students or got student endorsement. With this student coalition that I'm a part of and growing with other students, we want to be included in this process. We want to help educate, the candidates, what is actually happening on the ground level for students, because we've been the last to know about the class cuts, last to know about any communications from trustees before. We weren't included in the verbiage about how they're going to choose the next chancellor, and yet our education is affected, because of all their decisions. So we love to talk to potential candidates, tell people about the issues that are really important to students. Like one issue is we have ethnic studies classes that were cut, and some departments need to grow. And currently we have no full-time professor for the African American Studies department. And it's one of the first in the nation to have started it was at CCSF, the African American Studies program. It's because students came up and spoke up 50 years ago that we have these amazing, classes. And how do we, protect these departments, and they don't have a full-time teacher. How can students voice this concern, but also get help from the trustees and actually get included into the process of solutions?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And right now with everything that is going on and, the city shutting down and, many people losing, their jobs and being unstable in regards to their housing, how will this situation, alter the trajectory of this fight to continue for public education? And, now that this is happening, I'm guessing it's more important than it ever has been before. Yes. So that we continue to fight for this, because if the city is focusing on other things, it makes total sense that they might overlook how important the arts are for a public institution like CCSF. So what are you guys doing to make sure that your movement and this fight that you're going through, that it doesn't alter with this pandemic that is going on? And what do you hope to see come out of this? We talk about this in some of our conversations here at Manny's, that this moment in this situation, it reminds us that community is very important, that standing in solidarity with one another is what truly gets us forward. So how do you wish that this will affect and inject a sort of dose of hope into what you're doing and what the rest of the students are doing?
Yeah, I think that we want to community build, and we want to show that we have a lot of empathy for our neighbors. And not everyone has the opportunity to go to private school or go to a private university. and fighting for the ordinance to save, spring classes that were cut, like ESL classes, Project Survive classes, self-defense classes, all these are the things that are so important for our community. We realize that, some people who may, live in wealthier districts of San Francisco or have the options to go other places, maybe they're not so open or focused on helping those that really rely on it, and equity. So we want to make sure that we can outreach to our community members and say that we're open for collaboration. We want to help, like for the Coalition of Homeless and the tents. We want to make sure that, our homeless are being housed in hotels and not left and uncared for. So we're using this coalition and power to really tell all our students, this is the time that you can get involved and join our neighbors in solidarity to support causes that we feel is important. Like Leon Martin healthcare facilities, they're being threatened to close, and we want to make sure that our students that do utilize the resources know that that's happening, and we all as allies could go and help preserve something that is super important to our city. There's a petition online to save, and also you can go donate to their GoFundMe. Basically, we just want to allow the community to realize that we are a living entity now. And maybe City College had multiple waves of different types of student movements or community movements, but unfortunately some of them have died off because it's very taxing. We had, the school accreditation crisis before I came to school and other things, but we wanted to show people that we are currently a living movement supported by hundreds of other students, hundreds of other community supporters, and we want to collaborate. We are, voters. We are, people who work essential jobs, or people who want to get involved, and including us in the conversation and offering opportunities for us to step up and collaborate and learn can only benefit our community in the future, because we're going to be able to take those skills and continue on. And seeing that we all have a voice, it's very comforting to hear and honor other people's voices and truths, but also be able to highlight and uplift other people's stories too, because you never know what solution's going to come out. And through the hardships of all of this organizing and learning things the hard way, we have really found our allies. And we're just we're so grateful we found this community, and it's only going to get better because we're building it, and we're not going to stop. And I can't wait to see what happens from this conversation, because the audience at Manny's is so different from all the other audiences that we've spoken to before, and not everyone knows what happens at Board of Trustees meetings, or no one knows what happens at the granular level happening to students. Sometimes people look at a catalog and be like, oh, I want to take a woodshop class, which I highly recommend. But you don't know the politics. But if you just get a little more informed and know that these student groups that are alive, and a representative from a student group looks just like you, then it will all get better.
Yeah, I love that. That is so beautiful what you just said. Everybody has a voice, and if we don't stand up for one another, then what is community? And I definitely think now is the time. This is the moment to do that. I'm very much inspired by all your beautiful words about standing up for one another. And it seems that we've concluded our conversation, but nonetheless, Jess, I want to thank you so much for participating in this. I definitely think that providing public education for CCSF is vital to the city of San Francisco, and it is how we keep our city vibrant and alive.
Yeah, and it's part of the solution going forward post shelter in place. This is how we're going to rebuild our economy, and this is how we're going to be able to restore community, because if we're able to have these places where we all can meet and learn the thing that we've always wanted to learn, and have the interaction with all these different people from different neighborhoods and socioeconomic classes, we get more empathy and we're able to contribute to solutions that are so diverse. And the more diversity we have at the table, the more inclusion that we can have, you know, in the solution.
Yes, I love every single word of it. CCSF Collective and CCSF Student Says on Instagram and Twitter, you said?
Yes, on Instagram and Twitter.
What is your personal social media handle that if anyone who's watching and they want to reach out to you to make sure that, hey, I want to run for the board of trustees or I want to help, what can I do? You know, how can I mobilize to make sure that I am joining this fight with you? Where can I find you? Where can they reach you?
Um, Okay. Oh, Instagram. Sorry. I'm not used to giving out my personal, that's
Oh
why.
no, it's fine. Then let's just keep it at
Yeah,
CCS,
let's just keep it at that.
CCSF Collective and CCSF Student Says. Go to their page on Instagram. I follow you guys, CCSF Collective, I believe, and I am very excited to see what we get out of this fight. And I am very much looking forward to us seeing you again and to succeeding and to having a wonderful rest of the year in which we provide these essential services for people that truly need it. And thank you so much. This conversation will be on YouTube. So if you want to share this with friends or with other people, because I think this conversation was very informative, and I think everyone needs to hear about this. And it will be uploaded either tomorrow, Monday. We have the weekend off. But nonetheless, thank you so much, Jess. It was a pleasure to talk with you. Thank you so much for sharing all this incredible knowledge, and it definitely makes me want to get involved in your fight to provide these essential services for CCSF students and for the entire city. And Manny's very much appreciates you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I can't wait to collaborate with you in the future. I
Please.
know this is the beginning of a long relationship.
It very much is. It very much is. I will see you soon.
Okay.
And thank you so much. For those of you that want to donate to Manny's, the Join It link is not here, but you can find it on our Facebook. Thank you so much, you guys. Thank you, Jess.
Thank
And
you.
see you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.